Jesus is on a mission. He has been sent by his Father on a grand adventure to redeem and restore human lives to his kingdom. Jesus is already on the loose out there, doing the heavy lifting of working in the lives of every human being we see. And he's on the move in your neighborhood too. To Jesus, mission is never an abstract concept or a statement on a wall or a once-a-year sermon topic. To Jesus, mission is always people, real people, like the people living next door to you, the people working in the office with you, the people who volunteer with you, play on a team with you, go to the same school as you. And Jesus is involved in every one of their lives. Some may not know him, some may not want him, but don't miss this. Some may be ready for him.
Welcome to this next segment of your mission adventure with Jesus. Last time we began inviting you to look for what Jesus was already up to around you. Well, as you were looking, what did you see? Who did you notice? What was Jesus asking or inviting you to do?
For the sake of clarity, we're going to take a couple minutes here at the beginning of this segment to define 4 terms we're going to use fairly often during this training process.
The first one is missional living. Missional living is simply living each day, every day, as if you were on a mission trip to your own neighborhood.
We see ourselves as neighborhood missionaries. The second term is missional community. A missional community is a smaller group of neighborhood missionaries who gather regularly to support each other as they learn to live their lives as a mission trip. It looks a lot like this group you are currently meeting with. People in missional communities regularly gather together in order to tell their mission stories, unpack what they have seen, who they have interacted with, and what Jesus may be inviting them to do in all that. By gathering regularly, like this in a missional community, people receive the encouragement, insight, and accountability they need to go back out and join Jesus the next week. As you may know, if you were to do an internet search on the word missional community, you'd find that there's all kinds of definitions floating around out there. So just for the sake of clarity, when we use the term missional community in this training process, we specifically mean people that see their everyday lives as a mission trip, and then they regularly gather together in order to encourage each other, gain insights from each other, and hold each other accountable in a positive way to this missionary lifestyle. We think it reflects well what it says in Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25.
Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage each other, and all the more as we see the day approaching.
Or to expand that a little bit, let us consider how we may regularly gather together in order to spur one another on so that we might figure out how the love of God and the good of God can get loose through us into the lives of people around us that need it so badly. And let us encourage each other because it can get pretty discouraging sometimes, and all the more as we see the day approaching. That's why we do missional community. It's a place where Hebrews chapter 10 can actually happen.
The third term is neighborhood.
When we use the term neighborhood, we certainly have in mind the place where we actually live. But we also like to remind people that God has placed us in a variety of neighborhoods. If we understand neighborhood as a network of relationships to which we have regular access. So if we think about it that way, we actually have the neighborhood of our workplace, the neighborhood of where we like to hang out, the neighborhood where we volunteer, the neighborhood where we go to school.
So the real question is, who are those that are regularly around us every day? Those are our neighbors. Now, the fourth term is neighboring. Neighboring is a verb. Neighboring is an action word. Neighboring is how we get to know the people in our neighborhood.
Yeah, so neighboring then is takes seriously that mission happens best within a context where relationship and friendship are cultivated over time. Neighboring can happen in a variety of ways. It can happen in a more planned way, like having a barbecue, or a more spontaneous way, where we're walking the dog and stop to have a chat with a neighbor. Either way, neighboring puts us into position to be able to find out who our neighbor is, what's their story, and what might Jesus already be up to in their lives. So Jesus is pursuing his Father's mission in every one of our neighborhoods. There is, of course, a lot of mystery about how Jesus will actually work out his plan in each person's life. But this much we can be sure of. Jesus is uniquely preparing each person to receive what his Father would freely give them, the forgiveness of sins and life with him forever. So that is what Jesus is up to every day with every person in every one of our neighborhoods. And of course, he invites us to join him.
Here is an important change in mindset for most church members. Jesus is inviting us to join him on his mission. He doesn't give us a mission to do for him. Jesus is on a mission, and he invites us to come with him. The first time I realized Jesus was inviting me to come with him and not go for him was a great relief. If I go for Jesus, I am doing the work and seeing the results of what I can accomplish. Not a good plan. But when I go with Jesus, he is doing the work and I am seeing the results of what he can accomplish. Now that's a good plan. So you see, only Jesus can do Jesus' work. So let him. Our job isn't to try to do Jesus' work for him. Our job is to watch for the work Jesus is doing in the lives of the people around us and then to join him. We'll talk more about that in a future segment.
Yeah, only Jesus can do Jesus' work. Only Jesus can die on the cross and rise again to take away people's sins. Only Jesus can know what's stirring around in the deep places of a person's heart. Only Jesus can prepare a person so that when he brings us around to them, they're ready for that seed of kindness, that pinch of hope, that cool cup of water of grace. Jesus speaks of this in John chapter 4, when he says to those with him, "Open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest." When Jesus says people are ripe for harvest, he simply means they are ready for good news from God. Now, if I had been one of the disciples hearing Jesus say this, I would have wondered, how can anyone be ripe? I haven't even done anything here yet. However, Jesus is saying that if wherever we are, we will open our eyes and look at the people around us, we can know that the Spirit of God has already been at work in their lives long before we arrived on the scene. So Jesus says, count on it and look for it. God's already been at work in their lives. They may not understand it. They probably don't know it is him. But God has brought many of them to a point where they are ripe to encounter his good news. Jesus simply wants us to open our eyes and look for these people.
So who is ready for a little news that is good in your various neighborhoods? For years, our family lived on a little farm with apple trees in the front yard. Apples would form on our trees in early summer. It wouldn't be too long before they were fully formed and turning red.
However, if we tried to go and pick an apple out of the tree too early in the season, it would simply refuse to let go of the branch. What was the problem? The apple wasn't ready. Now contrast that with our experience in the early fall. We'd walk outside, we'd be underneath the tree, there'd be all those apples, and just a slight breeze, those apples would start raining down on our head. What was the difference? Well, the apples were now ready.
Here's the mission lesson. If people are not ready, there will be no harvest, no matter how hard you yank on them. But once they are ready, they'll practically drop into your hands.
So open your eyes and look around. Notice who's already there. Who's Jesus already working on? Who's almost ripe? Who's ready for a little kindness, a little hope, a little news that is good?
You can count on this. Wherever you are, whoever you're with, Jesus is up to something. This is our new mission mindset. We get to join Jesus on his mission. We can do this. Let's find out how.